These are all just mementos of my past.
Right.
But it sometimes is nostalgia
Yeah.
to see when I was younger.
This looks like something though that is important to you because
What's that?
the go placidly. The
Oh, yeah. It sort of teaches you to be at peace with the universe. I think it's very important for me. I had difficult times in my past.
Thank you very much indeed for talking to Al Jazeera. General Prabowo Subianto, you have lived through and experienced at the highest levels the turmoil that Indonesia has been through in the last 15 or so years. As you look back, what do you think about the changes that have happened here?
There's a new awareness of proper political process, but we are still far from what we need to achieve. There's still a lot of the hijacking of democracy, and this weakens our country. That's what I believe.
People outside the country believe that Indonesia has had actually a pretty good record over the last few years. Of course, they're not experiencing what's happening in the country. What they see is Indonesia taking a leading role in terms of the world, being involved in G20, for example. Tell us exactly what you mean by hijacking democracy.
You know, democracy is not just elections. Democracy is also political culture, fairness, transparency. You know, we have many elections in which the voting list of voters are full of ghost voters. Basically, it's fraudulent voting lists. How can we have a real democracy with ghost voters? And the number is quite amazing, you know. And even at present, we are now demanding an investigation and cleaning up of the voting list. Because how can we have elections with a fraudulent voting list? You know, people who have died many years ago, they're still there. 5-year-old kids are still there. You have names that come up maybe 30 times, the same name with different addresses. You know, so this type of fraud is very prevalent. And the buying of votes, the buying of election officials is very prevalent. That's what I mean by the hijacking of democracy. So on the surface, it looks good, but in substance, a lot must be achieved. And the problem is if our people in the end lose trust in government, lose trust in institutions, then I'm worried. I think there can be a real breakdown in the body politic, you know, in our political life. Because history teaches us that if the people lose trust in the institutions, it's the beginning of breakdown, of a failed state.
You know, Indonesia is a huge country. I was just reading an article that was saying that there are more Muslims in Indonesia than there are in Egypt, Syria, and I think Lebanon all put together.
I think we're the largest country with the largest Muslim population in the world, I think.
Given that, what kind of leader is needed? And given what we've seen around the world, it seems that there is a change in the mood, that people want transparency. They may not want the kind of strong leadership that I gather that you believe is necessary.
I think every leader should be strong. How can you be a leader if you're not strong? You must have strong character, you must have strong integrity, you must have a strong belief in common sense, in honesty. How can you have a weak leader anywhere in the world? You know, Margaret Thatcher was considered the Iron Lady, you know. So So I don't think that's a relevant position. What I think is now, I once met a very wise and honest Indonesian political leader who's retired now, a very successful governor of one of our provinces. And he told me, Prabowo, the essence of leadership in government is very simple. Two things, he said. Love your people, use your common sense. So this is sort of guiding me, The myth of our people, the mythology, the legend is always yearning for the just leader. We call it in Indonesian Ratu Adil. Ratu is the prince, or the princess, or the queen, or the king. Adil is just. So we can translate it as the just leader. Our people want a just leader.
Prabowo Subianto has reinvented himself into a populist politician. But there was a time when he was a soldier, serving at the highest level in the military, a time he still looks back on with nostalgia and has captured in a room filled with pictures and inspirational texts.
These are all just mementos of my past.
Right.
But it sometimes is nostalgia to see when I was younger.
This looks like something, though, that is important to you. Because
What's that?
The go placidly.
Oh, yeah. It sort of teaches you to be at peace with the universe. I think it's very important for me. I had difficult times in my past, So I use this as an inspiration.
Go placidly amid the noise and haste.
Right. Be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly. And listen to others. Even the dull and ignorant, they too have their story. This is very wise. Very wise. And it's 1692.
Yes.
400 years ago.
You talk about honesty and cleanliness, and there have been some accusations against you about alleged abductions when you were at the top of the chain of command, for example, about atrocities that occurred in East Timor during the time when you were leading Kopassus. Can you explain those in the interests of this being the clean and honest leader that you mentioned?
Yes, when you serve as a soldier in the highest echelons, you will always be subject to accusations, charges, defamation of character. That's the risk of your profession. I think many top generals in the world have been accused of so many things. That's the risk that we take. That's why they give you a high rank, and that's why also sometimes you have to face very tough challenges, tough accusations. I think that's part of it comes with the profession. Yeah? And if you are high profile, if you take a strong position on anything, you will face these charges. But most of these charges, nearly all are defamation of character. They are designed to destroy my integrity. And this is my third general election. This is my third. I've been competing in politics for 15 years in business. So every time my support goes up, accusations start coming. But the Indonesian people, they are not that stupid, That's why I'm getting strong support now.
So do you deny those accusations?
Of course,
outright?
I've denied many times. On record, I've been accused of planning a coup d'etat.
This was during the time of...
98, yeah.
Yes, Suharto.
Yeah, planning a coup d'etat, but did I carry out coup d'etat? So history is my witness, so I think my track record speaks for itself. I think the Indonesian people realize that I have proven my loyalty to the Indonesian Constitution, that I did not carry out the coup d'etat.
The track record, though, has also led to your being blacklisted from the US, hasn't it?
Well, Nelson Mandela was blacklisted from the United States at one time. Am I not in good company?
But you're not Nelson Mandela either.
I'm not, but he was at one time blacklisted. Many were blacklisted. It's part of the defamation campaign. I think many people in America realize that I was not responsible for many of the accusation that was leveled against me.
One of the reasons that Indonesia has become a global leader, as it were, is because of its very successful economy. But it seems that you're worried about the economic direction of the country as well. What kind of a program would you espouse? Would you describe yourself as an economic conservative?
No. Coming back to the economic situation in Indonesia now is very worrying. This is what I've been warning for many years, that the nice figures, the attractive figures, is a bit of sort of icing. It looks good on top. We have 50% of our population living below the poverty line. Now, for the first time in 15 years, we have a trade deficit. We import more than we export. Can you imagine an agricultural society importing food? 3/4 of our national territory is the sea, is water, and we import fish, and we import salt. Can you imagine that? How can you say that we are a strong economy if we have to import fish and salt?
To get back to the political situation, the current president is a former military man. You yourself are a former military man. What should, do you think, the role of the military be in a democracy?
I think it's very accepted, and also we have proven in Indonesia that the military has withdrawn from politics. And I think Indonesia is one of the very few cases in which the military has withdrawn voluntarily. So I was one of the first generals in Indonesia who espoused civilian supremacy. So I hold the Constitution, because I think that the ultimate power holder must be elected by the people. And the military, of course, is a servant of the state, servant of the people, not elected. So the military should not have political function. However, the history of Indonesia shows that in cases where the civilian institutions are absent or have failed, sometimes the military have been forced to enter civilian government, or to take over the functions of civilian government by force of circumstance. But I think we are developing a mature society, and I think this must be continued. You know, we must not be derailed, we must not be hijacked by corrupt invested interests, and I think this is a danger now. In Indonesia, we're coming to a very sensitive period of our history. So,
in the sense that,
as I said, democracy in Indonesia can fail by the weakness of our legal system or enforcement system. The massive cheating is very, very sensitive period. So I think this is how wise will the Indonesian elite be, or will the Indonesian elite want to continue, business as usual, continue the current state where everything is up for sale.
They might not like to hear you saying that, being a potential president.
This is the feeling of the people. The people are fed up. You have if you have no money, you cannot get real justice in Indonesia. That's the situation. You see, so I think that's the danger is that democracy can be derailed.
If I may, you talked about justice as being an integral part of democracy. There are those who were victims of past authoritarian regimes under Suharto, when you were a top general, of course, leading the military, leading the special forces. What about justice for them?
Yes, justice for everybody. Yes, victims of
disappearances.
Disappearances? Yeah. Is it? Are you meaning that I'm responsible for the disappearances?
Well, you've denied it, of course,
Yes.
but in principle, should they also have had some kind of process of truth and reconciliation, maybe, or some kind of judicial process?
Yes, of course.
Would you, under a Prabowo Subianto presidency, offer that to victims of human rights abuses during those times?
Yes, I think you have to take things in proportion. You have to take things with fairness. But we respect human rights everywhere. That's why we get a lot of support from the people.
Within the military, you might also face some opposition. I was talking about the elite might not like it, that you want to change things around and you're worried about vested
it's
interests.
not that I want to change things around.
But what about
it's the demand of history. It's the demand of the people of Indonesia. If I don't carry it out, someone else will. The people are fed up with corruption. If we cannot bring good and clean government by the elections, there will be a popular uprising. There will be revolution.
What makes you say that?
That's the lesson of history.
Isn't that fear-mongering in a certain
No,
extent?
it's not. That's what's happening in the Middle East. If you don't have justice, if you don't have equity, if you don't have social justice and economic justice, you will have unrest. It's not Prabowo. I'm not fear-mongering. It's history. So I sense what my people want. I know what they want. They are fed up with corruption. The key is always, in my reading of history, is good governance. That's the key.
So how would you deal, for example, with religious difference? There is a rising religious intolerance in this country, and there are those who are disappointed with the way that the current president's dealt with it.
I think, again, we must be very firm in protecting all minorities. That's one of the strong pillars of my political party.
But wasn't there a time that you yourself allied with some Islamist, as they say, to use the jargon, parties?
In politics, sometimes you do have to maintain communications, right? And I would not say ally, but in politics, you will always be accused of being not left enough or not right enough. Maybe you're too Islamist or not Islamist enough. So that's the risk of the profession.
Prabowo Subianto, as I've mentioned in the past, you've had quite a controversial record. That might mean that your enemies are not just in the political scene, but even within the military. Is that something that you sense, that the military is divided? Do you feel that there are cliques, as it were, that you are up against?
No, I mean, cliques you have everywhere. Even in your high school, you have cliques, right? So it's human nature. But and then you have likes and dislikes. It's natural, but I don't feel that it's going to be significant. I think in the end, it's going to be the will of the people. And I'm at peace with myself in the sense that whatever the Indonesian people want, I will respect. Whoever they choose, I will respect. The important thing is, we must not cheat the people. That is the most important thing for me.
But Indonesia has become increasingly decentralized.
Yes.
There is still, issues about the situation in Aceh, the situation in Papua, West Papua.
Yes.
How would Prabowo Subianto deal with them?
Coming back, good governance. Good governance. Everywhere in the world, in Aceh, in Papua, not only in Aceh, in every province of Indonesia, people want basic services. They want justice. They want clean water. Some of our people have to walk 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers to get water every day. You know, in the dry season, this is a matter of life and death for many of them. So, with good governance, I think most of our problems will be solved. I think what all people in the world want: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. All people, whatever the color of their skin, whatever their religion, that's what they aspire to. That's what I sense. They speak a different language, but they accept me. They can sense if we are talking, you know, if we are talking sense, if we are talking honest, or if we are giving them, you know, bullshit. They sense that. And that's why I'm convinced if you have good governance, you have clean governance, most of the problems will be solved.
What I've noticed is your personal and your public personas and how they kind of intersect, and I find it very interesting because I think a lot of people would think that you are quite a single-minded person, very confident in your ability to deliver, but the system and circumstances and the world are such that one needs to build consensus often in order to come to a point where you can actually deliver what you need to deliver. You need to get bills through Parliament and things like that. So
consensus building is very important.
So let me ask you this: where is that desire to build a consensus coming from? To be a pragmatic man who wishes to do business, someone that the world can do business with.
You know, I've come to the conviction that life is compromise, but there are certain sets that we cannot compromise. We cannot compromise on corruption. We cannot compromise on stealing the resources of the people, because these resources are needed for the livelihood of so many millions. But I'm convinced that our country is wealthy. In a conducive economic environment, everybody wins, you know. We are rich, we have a big market, we are 250 million people. You know, you can open a noodle shop and be very successful. You can open anything in Indonesia. You know, we are I think the next frontier. We will be the next growth area. You know, we can be the new engine of growth for the world, maybe. We are the 4th largest population in the world. We are now the 16th largest economy. You know, so with good governance and clean management, a lot can be done. I'm very convinced. That's why I want to be president. I don't want to be president of a poor, failed state. You know, for what, right? I'm confident that we can turn around the situation very fast. That's my conviction.
Thank you very much indeed for talking to Al Jazeera.
Thank you for coming over.
Prabowo.